Welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. This month, the topic is "It's Not the End, Finding Hope." I like to do this theme at the end of the year, and just because I know the holiday season can be hard, sometimes the hardest for a lot of us. Today we have a new guest. Her name is Daisy Paige. Thank you so much, Daisy, for joining us and sharing your insight with us today. I'm just thankful that you're here.
Well, I'm thankful that you had me on. I'm more than my pleasure than anything to be here with you today.
No problem. I didn't put in this, but if you are, I usually have a disclaimer. I must have didn't put in the overlays, but 988 in the United States is the new crisis hotline. If you are struggling with any suicidal thoughts or you're struggling at home, I do encourage you to find what resources available wherever you are around the world. I'll put it in the notes for those who watch, but usually I have it underneath here. But moving forward, Daisy, I always say that people say it better than me. Horatio Jones says it this way. He says, instead of saying I'm damaged, I'm broken, I have trust issues, I say I'm healing, I'm rediscovering myself, I'm starting over. What comes to mind when you hear this quote?
It's the time to work on yourself, recover, and pray for help from God to help you with that.
Yeah, and I feel it's inspiring because a lot of those messy questions, a lot of those things that we struggle with are sometimes we don't take the time or we're too ashamed to even admit that we're going through them. Daisy, you're new to the podcast and I'm really excited to have you. I also like having all our new guests share a little about your story that brought you here. I see your book behind you on the side. Could you just share a little bit about yourself and what you've been, what brought you to where you are today?
Well, I'm from Texas, a small town near the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay.
I lived here all my life, and I have 3 grown children that I could not be more proud of, that they witnessed and saw so much as I grew up. And I couldn't move away from my hometown more than 4.5 years or something. Some sort of tragedy or trauma always brought me home. So I guess I'm meant to be here with my family and friends. But what brought me here is my book, Unexpected Moments. I was diagnosed with a rare terminal condition, and only 4 out of 100,000 people get this in the USA or get diagnosed with that. So that's how rare it is.
And tell us a little bit about the book. Obviously, it's what prompted you to start writing and sharing your story, or can you share a little bit more what brought the book about?
It was after I was diagnosed. I saw a vision from God, and He told me that my time was near, but I needed to just share my story first from the beginning. Well, I had no way of knowing how I was supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky to meet Kirk Cameron. Everybody knows who Kirk Cameron is. The Mike Sleeper on Growing Pains for 7 years and Fireproof and Left Behind 1, 2, and 3. But I met him and I told him my story, and he said, I think you should write a book. I was like, Kirk, I've never written anything more than a poem my whole life. I don't know anything about writing a book. He said, pray about it. Ask God to give you the words, before you write. So the next day, it was mid-October, I actually started writing. Prayed for the Lord to give me the words, and it just flew out. So I started devoting about 3 or 4 hours a day to writing.
Wow.
January 24th, I was finished with the book. I sent Kirk my manuscript. In March, he sent me back a forward, a beautiful forward. And in March 7th, my book was published.
That's wonderful. And those listening, watching, there'll be links underneath the notes. So if you want to find out more about the book, you can check it out yourself. A lot of times when we can't imagine. Like you explained, you have one of the most rare diseases that anyone could get, and um, how was that struggle? Obviously, you wrote the book, and it's inspiring that you went and you followed through it. But what got you up each day? What was something? Obviously, I do not minimize. Obviously, I'm faith based, and I love the idea of being grounded and having something outside myself. That doesn't change. That is, that foundational. But on those days that it's scary to write a book. People tell me, "Oh, you should write a book." It's like I could write a paragraph. I could write a few pages, but I'm just saying that would be daunting. What kept you going through all that whole process?
Actually, I just knew that I had to do what God asked me to do. And I use that for strength and faith that I've had my whole life in Him. I mean, through my life, there was some dark times, and I thought God was punishing me for something, or I was cursed, and I gave up. Those times got harder because God was saying, "You need me." But it's just like I got up each day, I knew He needed me. He needed me just to share my story with the world. And since the book has been published, I just finished writing my second book. Because after I wrote the book, I started having these visions of heaven. So my second book is called Beyond Heaven's Gates. And I'm so excited about that. I'm waiting for my daughter. My daughter's the one that painted this book cover, and she's working on my second one. And I'm getting it edited, but it should be published in a couple of months. So I'll have another one that.
And it's inspiring because a lot of people, would say, Daisy, you need to take care of you. You need to slow down. You need to rest. But I feel that you're very driven and passionate towards this, and it's inspiring to see when we are outward centered in our lives. When a lot of times we can tell ourselves, "Hey, I have a lot of things," and faith. And what I wanted to say was, the holidays. When this comes out, it'll be in the holidays, and in the holidays, a lot of times there's overemphasis on one thing, and a lot of people find the holidays to be very hard to get through. A lot of times it's hard because there's a lot of pressure to have those moments, and some of those moments were with people that are no longer here. Sometimes things there's this overemphasizing. Mark Twain says it this way: the worst loneliness is to not be comfortable with yourself. One thing I found just speaking with you, just briefly, is that you are comfortable with what you're doing. You're purpose driven, and I feel sometimes when people see that, it's like it takes them aback, but obviously it's inspiring because so. What would you share with someone, those who are struggling during the holidays, or someone who's experiencing this terminal disease that what would you share with them today that has helped you along the way?
Well, what's helped me since I got diagnosed is just knowing that if I could change things, I wouldn't take anything for granted. So my advice is, don't take what you have for granted. It could be gone in the blink of an eye. Enjoy your friends, enjoy your family, enjoy yourself. Like, I can no longer do daily tasks simple as brushing my hair, bathing myself, washing my hair, things like that I feel like I took for granted. And knowing now that I have to rely on my husband 100%, I feel like a burden at times, but I know that I have to still keep pushing through and doing God's will and His work. And God's going to help me get through that. And He's going to help you get through the holidays if you just have faith and rely on Him.
It's a lot of times we just focus on what we don't have.
Exactly. The
all
negative.
all the negative. Oh, I don't have this, and we're never really present. We're never like, I'm content that I'm here. I'm content that I'm here with, and I'm, in the house. We kind of look at what we don't have, and it's wonderful when you could be present with what you have right now.
It is. And just making yourself think negative, it draws in a negative energy. And what that is it brings in Satan. And he's just going to keep beating you down and keep beating you down. So you're just going to still focus on what you don't have instead of what you do have. So I think it's thanking God for what you have will help you turn the negative off and turn back to the positive thoughts.
And I feel like, obviously, when I look into scripture, I remember in Ecclesiastes, and obviously this, Solomon always talks about grasping. It's like grasping in the wind. A lot of times, what we feel we need in our lives, and obviously, I know those who are listening may not be prone to faith, or maybe they're struggling, but the general concept of how many times we think we need something and it's right in front of us. We already have it. A lot of times we put so much emphasis, or we put our value towards other people, but our value is who we are. It's not outward. It's a lot of times and then one thing I liked that you said that I kept thinking of is time. We kind of just give up time really easily. We're just like, we don't value our time very much, and it seems that you value every second that you have.
Do. I know if I just gave up, it would be the end, and I'm not ready for it to be the end. I still have things that I've got to work on for God and for myself. I do have like my advanced directives and my power of attorney and all my will stuff, all that figured out. And I've even gone so far as to do at my memorial service. That's kind of depressing. Yes, I know, but what it's going to do is it's going to take the pressure off my family.
Yeah.
And they can enjoy celebrating my life and thinking of the positive things that I did, and not be so, I don't know. I know they're going to grieve, but you know what I mean. I think it's a lot easier on them.
And I feel that you're not fighting against the water. You're not fighting against you're going. And there's this one word in Greek, and I'm kind of. My wife has this untranslatable words. I love what this says. It says Meraki. If anyone who's Greek, I apologize, but if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but pouring yourself wholeheartedly in something and doing it so with soul, creativity, and love. Pouring yourself out. Martin Luther King, I remember always one of his quotes, he said, "You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step." One thing a lot of us do is we kind of sit there. And I feel when I see you write these books, I feel that every step that you take and how you just are, how you value each moment. I feel a lot of times it's something we as people who don't really think about things and time and being present, I think it's very inspiring. I really just wanted to commend you for what you're doing and what you're continuing to do.
That's what I want to do. I want to inspire others. I didn't write the book out of self-pity. I wrote it because I want people going through circumstances like that. I want to inspire them, as well as create awareness for this rare disorder.
And let's talk about the disorder. Obviously, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know much about it. Could you share a little bit about what the disorder is for those listening?
Sure, it's called MSA, but it's known as multi-system atrophy. It's where your autonomic systems functions in your body, like your circulatory system, your respiratory system, your mobility is the first thing that goes, of course, and then your urinary systems, all of those kinds of systems that you don't have to think about, that your brain just functions normally. They start shutting down. and until you just die.
When did you find out your diagnosis? When did they tell you?
It was about a year and a half, but 2 years before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, that's how it starts to get diagnosed with Parkinson's, because there's two types. There's the MSAP, which is the one I have, and it's MSA Parkinsonism, and then there's MSA cerebellar. Cerebellar has visual disturbances and swallowing and voice issues, vocal issues. When you get towards the end, you start having some of both. And I've already been starting to have some of both.
Okay. I have a quick question. You were diagnosed with Parkinson's. Was there something that led to you getting seen and re-diagnosed to what you have today?
Yes, like I said, it started off as a mobility issue and coordination, where I would drop things or I would just fall for no reason, and I was busting my head open, having to go get stitches and stuff quite often. And tremors, shakes like you have when you have Parkinson's, not being able to ride anymore, things like that. And the doctor diagnosed me with Parkinson's and put me on Parkinson's carbidopa medicine, and it didn't work. So he was stumped, and he sent me to a movement disorder specialist. He took one look at me, and he said, "You don't have Parkinson's, you have MSA." And I said, "So can you fix me?" He said, "I'm sorry that it's so rare. We don't have a treatment or a cure for it. And they're always having clinical trials and things." But he said that I was already too far progressed to take this next clinical trial. See, there's only 5 to 7 years of life expectancy from the onset of symptoms. So I've had it for about 4.5 now.
Okay. So, you mentioned that you wanted to bring awareness to this. What would you like to say to those listening today? What would you like people to remember about this disorder that you're going through? What would you like people just to remember?
Well, even though I've been diagnosed with a rare disorder, some days it does get me down. I get depressed or frustrated, but then I have to stop and think, okay, God's got me. Even though I have it, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving into it.
Yes.
I still pray to God to give me days so I can make it through to do what I need to do. And I did at first feel that I wouldn't be here till Christmas. But then when I wrote the second book, I felt maybe the first of the year now. So I feel like I'll be here through the holidays, and after that I'll go peacefully, seeing those dreams. And that's what's helped me too, is having those dreams. And just every time I had one, I just felt more and more at peace. So I'm at peace with it. I was in denial at first and very depressed and upset, but now I've made peace with it, and I'm can't deny it anymore.
Well, I will be praying for you, Daisy, and your family, and everything that's going on with you. It's inspiring, whether you are faith-based or not. Listening, the idea of moving forward positively, being something positive. There's so much negative out there. It's nice to see that there's still people who want to help people. When everyone would say, "Well, you just have to take care of you and your family." No, you're going outside yourself, and I feel right now that's, for me, that's a strength in stories. Your story matters. I'll tell you that, Daisy. Your story matters, and it's these stories that which prompted me doing this podcast. I remember people were like, "Is it faith-based? Is it not?" It is a mission. This is a missionary. So when you think about going to missionary all the country, what do? They give you medicine. Well, this podcast, my vision per se was that we'll continue the dialogue. We'll keep talking. One thing that usually happens is we stop talking, and I feel, being a leader in church, I know that doesn't help. It's inspiring to see also that not only that you're writing books, but your attitude towards it. Yeah, I know it's going to be tough, and I know it's going to be tough. It's not that you're disillusioned by it, but also that it's not going to stop you. And that's,
Oh,
I want to ask you, those probably listening may be curious, even I'm curious myself. What has helped you through these negative? You mentioned some, but what did not help you? I know the first part you kind of answered, but what did not help you through this whole process the last few years?
trying to do it on my own. Pushing God away. You know, like I said earlier, I blamed Him. Why me? I've lived my life nothing but pain. You know, have I been cursed? But God told me when I was 14 that He wanted me to rededicate my life. I was already a Christian. And He said, one of these days I'm going to have a big testimony to share. And I was like, what am I going to share, you know? But He was right. I do. And making sure that God is there, or believing that God is there to help you, that's what helped me. When I believed that He wasn't there, like the footprints in the sand, you know, He deserted me, that's when it didn't help.
Yeah.
That's when it got darker, and then more bad stuff happened, and more bad things, you know. It's having faith, like you said, and hope.
Yeah. I remember just, you know, and those listening know I say this a lot. And Viktor Frankl, you know, he was a Jew in the concentration camp. I remember he was a psychiatrist, and he would see people because he was also in the concentration camp, and he saw them give half their bread. He would there and minister. The people would do that. And people were like, why are you giving some of your bread? You need that bread to survive. But his argument was, you know, that, you know, hope. There's something about hope. There's something about that. And he said that, you know, when they thought the one of the biggest contrasts, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, is that those people saw that there was another day. And they saw that there was not, sustenance wasn't just in bread alone. You know, it was more of how the attitude, how they saw themselves. One of the biggest things I remember being still as a church leader, I ask people, how do you see God? Because a lot of times the way you see God is how you see other people and yourself. So if you see God as a vengeful, angry, judgmental God, you'll treat yourself that way. If you feel God is a distant God, He's a distant God. Then you treat people that way too. So we're very reflective, and it's you know, whether you're like, again, whether you're faith based or not, all this the idea of story and inspiring stories is what is also a passion of mine, because I go to support groups, I facilitate support groups, and I see people, nothing tangible change in their lives, but they feel better and do better because they share their story, because they share hope. And I just want to ask you, as we wrap things up, I don't want to any final thoughts you would like to share with us today? You know, you said a lot, and I just want to give you the floor to share more.
I'd love to read a poem that I wrote, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
It's called Eternal Love. Endless days, sleepless nights, as we go through our constant fights. Do we really get what we see, or is it totally up to me? Struggling through our trying times, burdened by the price of crimes. Truly, as each day ends, know that God's your only friend. As footprints in the sand did say, He really did carry you all the way. Know this, for it is up to you. He already knows what you should do. Find your faith from heaven above, and you will have eternal love.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Daisy. You know, I'm gonna put those listening. We're gonna put all the links so you could get the book, you could share, you could read the inspiring story that Daisy is putting together. It is a privilege to speak to you, Daisy.
Oh, and it's an honor to be here, Robert.
I want to just so I'm going to just say this again, Daisy. I'm going to pray for you and your family. I know it's hard, but I admire what you're doing. I just want to share with those listening. Remember to stay updated with all things Revive Ministries on various platforms. ReviveMinistriesFL.com is our website. This is goodbye from Revive Ministries Podcast, leaving with this last quote. Anne Frank is how we end it. She says, I don't think of all the misery, but of all the beauty that remains.
I love Anne Frank.
Yes.